Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on the Golden Hour Theory. I am so excited to share today's episode with you. We are going to be diving deep into the topic of manifestation. First and foremost, a huge shout out to my husband, Ryan, who inspired this episode's topic. For those of you who don't know, Ryan is a huge part of the strategy, not just for this podcast, but also for my business, Lux and Linen, as well as my blog from the studio. So a moment of appreciation for Ryan, who sparked this idea among many and caused me to spin and dive into the research that formed everything that we're going to cover today. So I touched upon the topic of manifestation in my last episode, and I realized that in general, manifestation can feel quite overdone. Maybe it's a topic where you're like, I don't need to learn anything about that. I already know everything there is to know. I'm not very interested in it. So with all these things in mind, I worked a little harder on putting together as compelling of an episode as I can for you guys, which compiles both my lived experiences as well as deep research that I've conducted in my past on several books that I've read or audiobooks that I've listened to, podcasts that I've listened to, masterminds in the industry that I've learned from. So this is a combination of my past and present lived experiences, and then my past and my present learned experiences. And what I really wanted to do was share a multifaceted approach to exactly how manifestation works, why it works, the reasons why maybe you're still not attracting everything that you might want, even though you feel like you've been doing all the practices that you believe manifestation to be. So I'm super excited to share everything that I've learned, and I intend that this episode finds whomever needs to hear it, that the information in this episode uncovers something or many things that you find deeper within you, and that you find at least one or two actionable pieces of knowledge that help make quick, positive, and impactful shifts for your reality and all of your desires. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to the Golden Hour Theory. I'm Kirsty, and this is your space for grounded, best friend style conversations about wellness, self-radiance, and creating rhythms of success that actually fit your real life. Picture us sitting down together, the warmth of the sun on our skin, lattes in hand, having a gentle chat with honest reflections and thoughtful shifts that feel safe, real, and attainable. Because your golden hour isn't just a moment in time. It's a way of seeing, a way of choosing, and a way of living. It's something that can only start from within, and I can't wait to share in this journey with you. I want to open this episode with a question. When you hear the word manifestation, what comes to mind? I'm thinking vision boards, maybe gratitude journaling, or just journaling in general, saying affirmations every day in the mirror, maybe lighting a candle and asking the universe for what you want. And all of these things are the versions of manifestation that have been taught to us the most. They're hopeful and they're honestly super fun. But here's the thing, if you've been doing all of those things and you're still feeling stuck and you're still feeling like the manifestation is not something that works for you or something that takes too long, I want you to know that it's not because you're broken. It's not because manifestation isn't real or doesn't work, but it's because you've been given about 5 to 10% of the picture of what manifestation actually is. So manifestation does incorporate all those things, the vision boards, the writing in your journal, the gratitude, the affirmations, but it's not the entire practice. Real manifestation is what I like to consider as your hygiene, your daily hygiene. So it's not something that you do once a quarter when you're feeling inspired or once a year doing your vision board. It's not just looking in the mirror and reading your affirmations. It's a full lifestyle practice. And the way that I relate this is if you want to have a certain physique, you're not going to just go to the gym once and then expect to be done and have your body look like you desire. Instead, you would go to the gym regularly, but then you're also doing all these other practices. You're eating healthy, you're watching your diet, you're getting rest, you're letting your body recover. You're doing all these other habits that help you to get to where your ideal desirable body is, and you're doing them constantly, and you're doing them for the rest of your life. You're not just doing that for a period of time and then you achieved your body and you stop. Because guess what happens if they did not become an actual habit or hygiene practice in your everyday life? So manifestation is really the consistency, the showing up even when you don't feel like it, the pushing through the challenges and pushing through the hard times. It's the willingness to keep going when your doubt and your ego start creeping in, because persistency actually produces results. So it's focus and persistency that will get you there. So if manifestation has felt frustrating or elusive for you or just silly to you, I want to gently reframe that and say that you have to actually go deeper. You have to spread your prongs wider. You have to do more things, more actions. And this is what I wanted to cover in this episode. So the place that we always have to start when thinking about manifestation is self-awareness. This is so important. This is the foundation, as I see it, for manifestation. Because without self-awareness, everything that you do in manifestation is kind of just this shell that doesn't have any depth to it. So self-awareness in this context isn't like, I knew who I am and I'm proud of that and I'm confident in that, or being able to describe your personality to a stranger at a dinner party. It's something a little bit more moment to moment. It's something that's a little bit deeper within yourself. It's the ability to catch yourself in real time and ask, what is actually driving this thought? Where is that thought coming from? Where am I making this decision from? What is happening for me instead of to me? Where am I finding these beliefs within me? How is my body feeling in this moment? And what is my body trying to tell me? So it's finding what's underneath your decisions, your reactions, your cravings, your fears. Are you moving from a place of who you want to be and the person that you pride yourself on being and you want to become? Or are you moving out of fear or habit or obligation, people pleasing, the desire to prove something to someone or to yourself? So these questions matter enormously because the same action and intention that you take from all of these practices can produce two completely different energetic signals. So you can send an email or have a conversation or make an investment or start your business. And depending on what's underneath it subconsciously, what's driving that action either pulls more of what you want towards you or quickly repels it. And I know this sounds crazy, but stay with me because by the end of this episode, I think it's going to make complete sense. So to explain this a little bit further, are you paying your rent and thinking, oh, that is so much money leaving my bank account. I'm so scared. I can barely cover it. I can barely make it work. Or are you thinking, I am so excited that I can invest. I'm so grateful that I can invest this money into a roof over my head and a beautiful home that I'm safe in, that I'm comfortable in, that I have running water, I have heat, I have cooling, I have plumbing, I have everything that I need, and I am able to invest in that. So are you releasing money from a place of fear and lack, or are you releasing it with a sense of investment and gratitude and joy and excitement? And this is something that I've had to personally work on myself with money, with love, with career. You can apply this practice to so many different things. I think it's important to mention in this as well is that ego is going to come up a lot in this. Ego, protection. And ego is not your enemy, but it will absolutely mask your inner wisdom if you let it control your life. And this is where things get tricky with self-awareness. So your ego and your subconscious want safety, they want validation, they want comfort, and they want the appearance of success. And sometimes your ego is driven by these things more than it wants actual growth. So your ego will push you towards decisions that feel exciting in the moment. It'll push you towards decisions that are really just about proving yourself or looking a certain way to somebody or filling a void for yourself, masking something that you're trying to cover up. And it'll do this dressed up as confidence or ambition or self-love, which makes it very hard to spot. But you know deep down that perhaps it's not completely right. So this is why self-awareness has to come before anything else. Because you can be doing all the practices, the journaling, the affirmations, the visualization. And if they're being run by ego or by a negative thought and a perspective that's not serving your desired self, all of these things are working underneath the surface and they're working against you, and they're actually repelling everything that you are consciously trying to seek out. So the question to keep returning to for any decisions that you make, even the smallest decisions, is this coming from a desire to grow, or is this coming from a desire to prove something? Is this coming from an obligation desire, a people-pleasing desire? And these are all the dividing lines. And for me personally, this is something that I continue to work on because I am and have been such a huge people pleaser. I have a lot of obligatory guilt towards things, and I have guilt towards being what people perceive as selfish. And so it is really, that is the part of self-awareness and self-growth and foundation that is challenging, is to overcome all of these things. Growth should feel like expansion. Even when it's hard, it should feel right. Proving feels like urgency, like tightness, like there's something to defend. And I think we've been taught that clarity should feel like this huge, electric, unmistakable yes. But even when there's fear and the grounded decision, it can still feel steady. It can still feel okay. Just because there's fear doesn't mean it's wrong. And we have to remember that fear is false evidence appearing real, FEAR. So we try to remove that fear from the decisions that we're making and try to approach them from an internal, calm state of mind. Try to uncover what the correct decision is to make for our future selves and for the self that we want to become. So said a different way, one of the most important things I've learned is that aligned choices can be terrifying and still feel right at the same time. And it's the ego or the fear that feels tight and defensive, like you're shrinking or you're moving away from something instead of toward it. It's kind of like a sinking feeling masked by confidence. And a lot of the times when it's not right, there's sort of a lower level of anxiety, a quiet sense of wrongness that you keep trying to push past. And your nervous system knows this. It's just that most of us haven't been taught to actually listen to this. So some of you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to read my body. I don't know how to read those signs. I'm not very in tune, and I kind of just go throughout my day with my conscious state of mind. And that's okay, because that's how most of us operate. And a lot of us have grown up in environments where we had to suppress our own instincts and suppress our desires and our thoughts and our actions. And we were taught to prioritize other people's needs before our own. We were taught to make others comfortable before we made ourselves comfortable. And the good news is when you shift the perspective and you realize that this is a skill just like any other skill, you can build it through practice to learn your body, to reframe your thoughts, your beliefs, and honor yourself and who you want to be while still honoring others. So if you want an action or a way to practice this, you can start simple. After you make a decision, any decision, it doesn't even have to be a big one, you can ask yourself, if I weren't afraid, if nothing else mattered, what would I choose? What is my first initial response? And this is honestly such a powerful question and a powerful tool that you can use to really listen to yourself and quiet yourself down and hear yourself. Because fear tends to make our choices feel urgent and more limited than they actually are. And that pause creates just enough space for you to be able to hear yourself. And once you nail down this recognition, this is the foundation of everything. So to wrap up the self-awareness piece, self-awareness is a muscle. It grows through curiosity, not through criticism of yourself. The goal isn't to catch yourself doing something wrong. It's to get curious while you do what you do. It's to step outside your body and say, why did I make that decision? And looking at these things, these actions that you have, these thoughts, these beliefs that you have as information, rather than something to criticize yourself about. Because when you look at everything that you do and the actions that you make as data, then you start to help yourself up level in a non-protective and a more objective way. And this curiosity will open the door to change for yourself. And once that door starts to open, once you genuinely begin to understand your patterns and what's driving them from an objective point of view, everything else in manifestation starts to snap into focus, including the piece that most people start with, which I would be remiss not to mention, is the law of attraction. So at its core, the law of attraction is the idea that like energy attracts like energy. I know we've all heard about this. So the inner state of yourself that you inhabit, your predominant thoughts, your emotional set point, your core beliefs about yourself, and the way that you see the world and other people is what your external experience tends to reflect and reinforce. So I know this sounds abstract, so I will dive a little bit deeper so I can make this more concrete. So there's a book that I listened to on audiobook recently, and it's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Giocondi. And he was actually one of the creative consultants on the film The Secret. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard of either of these, but teachings that they teach are a bit kind of 0 to 100 if you haven't dove into the energetic space. They can feel a little bit crazy, but they honestly will flip your reality upside down. And the fascinating thing to me is that their teachings are rooted in that of quantum physics and actual scientific research and studies. And for me personally, science has always been this abstract sort of thing, which is odd because science to most people is very concrete and very conclusive. But for me, I kind of see it as it's very vague. I think because it's not tangible to me in certain ways. So I'm going to try to explain what I learned in this book as less vague as possible, or the way that my brain tries to wrap itself around the information. So at the subatomic level, the most fundamental level of physical reality, things don't exist as fixed solid objects. They exist as waves of potential and as fields of possibility. I know this sounds crazy. But if you look at it, we are all made up of matter, of particles, and of energy. So if we think about it this way, what determines which possibility becomes actual reality is the act of observation or conscious attention. The author of the book explains that life is images of the mind brought into reality. So where you direct your focus and your belief is literally, not metaphorically, what collapses the field of possibility into a specific outcome. This is the observer effect, and it is documented in physics. So what Giocondi draws from this is something profound. You are not a passive receiver of reality. You are an active participant in the creation of reality. Stick with me. So the primary instrument through which you create your reality is through your consciousness. And there's two levels. There's the state of conscious and there's the subconscious. So specifically the quality and the nature of your beliefs, your inner state and your sense of self are what's driving and dictating your life and the decisions that you make and how you move and the things that are happening for you. This can apply to everything: relationships, health, creative work, purpose. It's this consciousness that we have to recalibrate ourselves into. And it's the degree to which you genuinely, at a very deep level, believe in your own value, your own worthiness, and the fundamental abundance of the world that you live in. And the difference between the people who seem to attract what they want and the people who feel perpetually stuck is not luck nor circumstance. It's the depth of this inner orientation and the things that you believe to be true. And I promise that everything I'm saying is going to have a meaning and attachment to manifestation, by the way. I'm not just rambling. I'm going to bring it all back. So my favorite topic of the moment is subconscious reprogramming. And this has everything to do with the reasons why your manifestation isn't working. Apart from the self-awareness, the practice of the law of attraction, the removal of the ego, this is such a huge piece that I didn't realize when I was working on my manifestation and my meditation practices and wondering why things weren't working out for me. This is the key. And this was the unlock for me personally. Simply put, your mindset shapes your behavior and your behavior shapes your outcomes. But your mindset isn't just your conscious thoughts. It's everything that's running underneath them that you might not even know. So your subconscious is below consciousness, and sole purpose is to keep you protected from any possible threat. So your subconscious is constantly scanning your environment for possibilities of threat. This can be danger or really anything to protect you from the things that you fear. And most of us aren't tapped in to our subconscious. We're only operating from our conscious. But there are these little beliefs, these little threads and strings and evidence that we've given to ourselves from a very young age, things that we observed when we were first born all the way up until age 7, that have kind of formed the way that we move throughout the world and the way that we continue to protect ourselves from these external dangers or threats and things that could potentially harm us. So subconscious beliefs are things that you inherit from your family or your parents, the stories or beliefs that you absorbed about what's possible for someone like you, the emotional patterns that fire automatically before your rational mind even gets a chance to step in. So a really important piece of this is to not suppress things or pretend everything's fine when it isn't, but it's also not wallowing in grief, fear, anger, or frustration, but rather, as I mentioned earlier, taking a turn and looking at yourself from the outside looking in and using it as data to consciously move through these things instead of bypassing them or letting them just drive yourself unchecked. You can feel them, you can allow them, but then you learn from what they're trying to tell you. And if we take a look at where that was taught to us, if we try to think back to the earliest memories that we have of these beliefs, maybe it was something that was told to us, maybe it was something that happened to us when we were younger, and the subconscious automatically clocked this as, okay, that happened to me. I'm going to make sure that it never happens again because it made me feel this way. And now every single time that something remotely close comes in that field of energy, I'm going to repel it off because I don't want to feel like that ever again. And we have to move through these things that are protecting ourselves in order to be able to expand, because some of these things are causing detriment to the things that you want. So I'm not saying to have toxic positivity, but genuine emotional navigation to return to your ground and to return to your true sense of self, to clear any limiting beliefs that might be driving you away from what you actually want. And I also want to say, don't blame yourself for these blocks, the things that you absorbed somewhere along the way, often before you had the capacity to even evaluate whether they were true or not. They're running quietly in the background. They're shaping your experiences in ways that you can't quite see. Phrases like this are money's hard to come by, or money is attached to hard work, or I don't deserve to be seen, or successful people are lonely, successful people are selfish, successful people are greedy, or successful people do less good for the world. Or I don't deserve to be loved. Love is only for fairy tales. No one will ever love me for exactly who I am. I have to compromise in love. And you actually might not consciously believe any of those things. You might intellectually reject all of them, but they still live in your subconscious. If they were installed early enough and reinforced often enough, they are literally running the show of your life. And what this can show up as is procrastination, self-sabotage when things start to get good, and it is unconsciously pushing away the very things that you've been calling in and staying small in the moments where you could be expanding. And it's where fear starts to overtake your garden with weeds instead of flowers. So your outer reality is essentially a mirror of your inner concept of self. And a lot of physicists believe that our universe is a hologram or a mirror. I know this sounds crazy, but it's kind of like that butterfly effect, or the karmic effect. So while there is a skeptic in me, because I'm so skeptical of everything, I can find evidence of this being real in so many ways in my life, and I know that you can too. And so your outer reality is also a mirror of your inner concept of self. Whatever you believe yourself to be at the deepest, most honest level, your subconscious and your life will continue to confirm and reinforce that. If you carry the identity of someone who struggles with money, life will find ways to keep confirming that story for you. Not because the universe is trying to punish you or life is trying to punish you. Universe doesn't think in that way. But because your subconscious is literally running that filter to help protect you and keep you safe. And if that's your most comfortable state, then the subconscious sees that as comfort equals safety. So it'll make that struggle more visible, more expected, more familiar. And familiarity in the nervous system registers as safety even when it's painful because it does not know the difference between what's real and what's not real. So operating with your subconscious and your conscious, the things that you desire, and your limiting beliefs running the show underneath is literally like having one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. So you can set the most beautiful intentions, the clearest vision, but there's a deep down belief that you're not actually worthy of what you're calling in, then you will unconsciously keep yourself from receiving it. The mechanism that seems to block you is the same mechanism that will create for you. And the difference is just in which belief is actually running the show. So how do you work with a block when you actually find one? Or how do you even know that you have a block? So first you have to catch it. And I think the first signal comes back to listening to your body, to that self-awareness. And it's that tightness, that resistance. It's always a signal. When you feel that familiar tightening, reluctance, the urge to shrink yourself, just pause before reacting. Ask what belief is underneath this and get curious with that. Not judgmental with yourself, not alarmed, just curious. Because often once you name that belief out loud and you clear your ego and you're actually able to give that belief a shape, a form, a name, and accept it for what it is objectively and not subjectively, it starts to lose half of its power. It stops feeling like your actual reality and starts feeling like what it actually is, which is a story. A very old story, maybe someone else's story, but a story nonetheless that's operating your everyday. So then challenge these beliefs. Ask honestly to yourself, is this actually true? Where did I learn this? Is there a single piece of evidence in my life that could contradict it? And there usually is if you're willing to look. So you find that single piece of evidence that contradicts your belief, hold on to it. And these are limiting beliefs, by the way. These aren't positive beliefs. So find a piece of evidence that contradicts these limiting beliefs and hold on to that, because that piece of evidence is what you're going to use to sow a seed for new beliefs and new ways of thinking and new perspectives. And when you keep holding on to those and you keep focusing on those and you keep finding other pieces of evidence, you're going to see that everything multiplies and more evidence is going to continue popping up in your life. And that's how we form or we recalibrate our beliefs from something limiting into something that's expanding. So one of the most powerful things that you can do is to be. And this is what I talked about briefly in my last episode. It's the concept of being. There is a distinction between being and doing that shifted something for me personally when I first encountered it. So doing takes time. You take an action, you wait for the result. But being is immediate. It's a state that you choose right now, regardless of the result and regardless of what your current circumstances look like. So it's a little bit delulu, but it's a little bit genius at the same time. So you can genuinely decide to be someone who is XYZ, to be someone who is abundant, to be someone who is worthy, to be someone whose relationship with money, love, or success is one of ease and trust and joy and peace rather than struggle and fear. And that decision, when you hold that with such conviction, everything around you immediately begins to shift. The actions that you take, the decisions that you make, and the way that you move through your everyday is going to shift. But you have to actively practice this and actively work on embodying the person that you want to become. How does he or she think? What are the thoughts that this person might have? What are the decisions that they might make to protect their energy or give their energy? And it's not about pretending that your circumstances are different than they are. It's about recognizing that your circumstances are not the cause of your inner state. They are actually the effect of your inner state. And they are the effect of your past beliefs. Your present is an effect of what you previously believed. And these effects can change when you change the cause. So you are not your conditions. You simply caused them. And again, this is not something to be upset at yourself about. This is data. And when you realize this, it is so inspiring and is so expanding and is so challenging to be able to take this on and really work through this. It's exciting. So this kind of ties also into another distinction, which is between desiring something and wanting it. So in everyday language, we use those words interchangeably, but energetically, they are two completely different things. So wanting comes from a state of lack, of hunger, of desperation. And simply put, the state of hunger produces thoughts of hunger, which produce feelings of hunger, which produce more hunger. So it keeps you in the loop of not having because it's rooted in the felt experience of that absence. And that felt experience of absence is what you're broadcasting and you're vibrating out to the world, which according to the law of attraction is what you're calling in more of. So desire is different. Desire is clear intention held with certainty and quietness and peace and joy. It's not desperation. It's not straining for things. It's not grasping for things. So one of the teachers of subconscious reprogramming that I love is Marley Rose Harris. And the way that she explains this is when you place an order online or on DoorDash, as you're placing the order, you're not thinking, oh my gosh, is this even gonna arrive to me? Oh, if it doesn't, what am I going to do? You don't do that. You place your order on DoorDash and you know that your food's going to come to you. You place your order online, you know it's going to come. You place an order at a restaurant and you know that it's going to come out. You're not thinking and wondering, well, what if they just don't bring it out to me and they forget about me? It's all those thoughts, those fears that come up, these beliefs. And where do those beliefs come from that you need to clear out? Because you need to focus on that piece of desire and that piece of detachment from the outcome. And that distinction from desiring, from wanting to desiring, from grasping to trusting is exactly what we mean when we talk about just letting go and letting the universe or letting God. And letting go is one of the most misunderstood concepts of manifestation. So a lot of manifestation practice is focusing on that goal and being that goal and becoming that goal, but you have to focus and believe in that goal with a sort of detachment. So you would love to have these things, but you're fine either way. But you're still going to practice and work in those actions without desperation of the end goal. So you might hear this and think that it means being passive or not caring anymore. And it's not any of those things. It means just trusting the process while continuing to show up every single day, no matter what. It means doing the inner and outer work with full commitment and then releasing that fear and that anxiety, that grip on exactly how and when the result has to appear, because the how and the when is none of your business. The how and the when of that company packing the t-shirt that you ordered, none of your business. You just know that it's going to arrive to you. Or the how of how the chef is preparing it and when they're preparing it and who's preparing it and who's delivering it. None of that matters because you know that the food's going to come out to you and you are fine either way. That grip, that desperate need to control the outcome is wanting in disguise as desire. And it signals to your entire system that you don't actually trust what's coming. And that distrust then creates resistance and that slows everything down for you. And in some cases repels it. I also saw this quote recently and hold on, I need to go find it. Okay, this quote was said by a monk. It says, imagine being bit by a snake, and instead of trying to suck the poison out and heal yourself, you decide to chase after the snake to find out why it bit you and tell it that you didn't deserve that. So you're focusing on the wrong things and you're trying to control the things that are happening to you or that will happen to you or that have happened to you, versus focusing on yourself, focusing on your goal, focusing on your peace, and focusing on expanding yourself and fixing yourself and trusting the process. I think another part of manifestation is in giving. And this is something that I learned in that book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money. So if you want to have something, wealth, love, happiness, give it to others first. So giving freely and cheerfully, your time, your love, your resources, your genuine attention is one of the most powerful manifestation practices. Not because the universe rewards it in a transactional way, but because we live in a multiplicative universe meaning that everything that we give out in a genuine state and a selfless state will return back to us multiplied. Every act of genuine generosity is a declaration to yourself and a declaration to the universe that you have enough of whatever it is that you desire. You are enough. There is always more than enough, and you are worthy of that. And that declaration felt in the body and not just your mind is one of the most direct ways to interrupt a scarcity mindset and replace it with the felt reality of that actual abundance of love, of money, of happiness, of success. Because you can't truly give to others from a place of lack. You give to others from a place of service and genuine selflessness. And when you find yourself able to give, that act becomes evidence that the belief that you're trying to build, I am abundant, I have more than enough, is actually already true. I am worthy of love because I can give love. I create space for love. I vibrate in love. I vibrate abundance. I vibrate wealth. I have more than enough. So what does all of this look like on a practical day-to-day level? Because I believe everything we talked about is true, but I also believe that truth without practice is just theories and it's just philosophy. So let's make this a little bit more real, a little bit more tactile, because as I said, I like things that are tangible. I love concepts and theories, but I like actions better. So your mornings and your evenings are your most powerful window, because when you wake up and as you're falling asleep, your mind is still soft and relatively malleable. You're in this sort of state where your subconscious hasn't fully come online yet. The day's to-do list hasn't taken over. So we're going to use these two windows deliberately. So before you reach for your phone, spend a few moments of silence and asking yourself, who do I want to be today? What things am I grateful for today? What things am I proud of that I did today that helped me take steps towards my future self? What was the best part of my day? What intention am I setting? What's one thing that I learned from today? So none of these things are what I want to accomplish. It's more, who do I want to be? And then identify one specific decision that you can make, or the decision that you were grateful for that you made from that place. And that's one small embodiment of your future self. So it's maybe how you'll respond, or you did respond to something that went sideways. Maybe it's the tone that you used in a conversation that was hard. Maybe it's starting something that you've been putting off, even if it's taking little baby steps towards it. And this is kind of the part where affirmations come into play, because they come into play with real feeling behind them, not just empty phrases that you recite to yourself just to check a box, but as declarations that you let actually land in your body. So good things happen for me. Opportunities always show up for me. People love to be in my energy. I get paid to exist. I am loved because I exist. And the instruction is to say it until you feel it, until there's genuine resonance, not just a mental agreement, until you truly, deeply believe it without resistance. And if there is resistance, ask yourself, why? What am I afraid of? What is this protecting? The distinction between thinking an affirmation and feeling it is everything. And if you're feeling something deep down that's repelling or resisting your affirmation, then dig into that, because that's one of those subconscious beliefs and one of those blocks that you now have the opportunity to be able to clear and rewrite and recalibrate. So throughout your day, you're going to encounter the inevitable moments that pull you off center, stress, comparison, doubt, the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And all of these are just little tests for you from the universe to help you kind of expand into what you're desiring. So rather than pushing the feeling away or collapsing or hiding from it, try asking yourself, how would my future self see this? How would my future self resolve this problem? So really what that is a perspective shift. Your future self, the one who has already moved through all of this and has come out of the other side, isn't panicked by this moment. What would he or she do? What would he or she say to themselves? Let that perspective guide you back. Step outside of yourself into that future self and help your current self through that situation, almost as if you were a loving parent helping a child through a situation, because you've got yourself, you know the answer, you know the way. And then there's gratitude, but with a twist. Most of us have been taught to be grateful for what we have, which is genuinely important for the shifts in your inner state. But we also want to talk about extending that gratitude forward. So being grateful in advance for what's on its way. Not in a wishful fingers crossed way, but in a settled, certain way you'd feel grateful for a gift that's already been given that just hasn't arrived yet. So this gratitude is the act of sealing the deal, the energetic confirmation that you have received what you asked for. If some of you listening to this are in sales, I think of it as assuming the sale. So assuming that the person that you are talking to, that you are presenting to, is already sold. You're not wondering if they're going to purchase from you because you are so confident that they are, and you are so grateful that they are going to work with you, that they already have agreed to work with you, and you're excited for that, and you're grateful for that. And that is a signal of completion, of wholeness, of it's already done. And that is one of the most powerful frequencies that you can inhabit. And that's something that I did when I worked in sales, is that I acted as if the person had already said yes to me. And I operated from that state that we're already working together. And I think you can bring this practice then into the things that you want, that you desire. You can act as if it's already done, and you will therefore then receive that which you believe is already done. So through all of this, the mornings, the check-ins, the journaling, the gratitude, the through line is certainty. So certainty is one of the most powerful forces in the entire manifestation process. Not the certainty that comes from having proof, because that's just logic. It's the certainty that comes from choosing to believe before the proof arrives. The ability to hold your vision, your identity, your new belief steady without fear, without apology, even when your current reality hasn't caught up yet. Because the gap between where you are and where you're going is not evidence that it's not working. It's just the place where all the work needs to be done. And I read this quote recently that says, "You'll see it when you believe it." So listen to that again. You will see it when you believe it, not you believe it. You'll believe it when you see it. And you only receive to the extent that you believe. So that is the feeling of practice, and that is what we're building. And remember that the things that you manifest will not happen all at once. Maybe there's something that you need to unlock before you step into that next level. And everything is happening in exactly the way it's always happened for every person who has ever radically changed their life. One aligned decision at a time, repeated with consistency and conviction and inspired action and passion until that identity catches up with your intentions. Clear your beliefs, take a step outward and look inward to help identify those beliefs, listen to your body, tune in to that self-awareness, embody the person that you want to become, give out to the world what you seek for yourself, and everything will start to manifest and everything will start to shift into your reality. All right. That's the whole thing. If this episode resonated with you, I would be so grateful for you to share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. And I would love to hear what landed for you in this episode. If there's an episode that you want me to make, just reach out to me. I love hearing from you guys. It means the world to me. And that is all. And I can't wait to chit chat soon in the next one. And I will see you guys soon.